Welcome to Authors Revealed. I'm Becky Anderson. We have one of our best middle grade readers with his new fantasy, the second book in the Five Kingdoms series. It's called Rogue Knight. Please welcome Brandon Mull. Brandon, welcome back to Naperville and Anderson's.
Thank you.
No, it's always great. We're always looking forward to it. I know a ton of kids are always looking forward to seeing you.
I've come here a lot now. I like this store.
No, we love having you. So we ask for you all the time. So thanks for coming to see us so much. But, this book in this series, and I know it's going to be, because it's the Five Kingdoms series, but it's going to be 5 books in the series.
Yep.
And the second one just came out this past November.
Yes.
And number 3...
comes out in March.
Comes out in March. So you're kind of in between 2 and 3.
Yes.
So what are readers saying right now? Because those who are new to your books, and you've had quite a few books, 16, something like that?
That's about right, yeah.
Am I guessing about
right? If you're
including
my picture books, yes.
Well, your picture
16.
books, yeah, right.
There's 2 of them.
But so a lot of kids already know you and know your work, but some kids may be new. And maybe they're just read the Five Kingdoms. So what do you hear from kids, especially when this is the second book in a series, and they could not wait to have that second book come out?
I'm hearing all the right stuff for this one. Yeah, like Fablehaven was my first series, and that hit pretty broad. Yeah. And then I think my Beyonders was a little more niche. It was a little on the older side of my category, right? But it feels like with Five Kingdoms, this is nice and mainstream. They're really liking it, old and young, and
girls and boys, and
girls and boys. It seems like
sure.
I hit my mark on this one, so I'm excited. It's a big adventure, and it seems like it's working.
Right. So I know we talked before we started about how many schools you've done since I think your first book was published in 2006, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Right. So you've done tons of school events, and you did some with us today.
Yes.
Tell us about what a school event means to you, and we know what the kids get out of it, seeing you and talking to you about books that they love and meeting that person behind it. But what do they do for you? And do you ever get ideas, especially when you're writing a series, that kids will say something or have some insight into a character or a plot line or something that you go, I'm going to think about that for another book in the series?
It can be useful. I always keep my ears open. One very specific example I have is when I was first starting, when I wrote my first Fablehaven book. One of the early questions I would frequently get at schools was, what new creatures are in the next book? What new creatures? And I was like, okay, note to self, make sure there's lots of new creatures, new things in this next book. And it's a simple idea, but hearing what they want to see, when it makes sense, I'll tie that in and make sure it's part of what I do.
Yeah. And do you ever have, I know kids they contact you all the time about stuff they love and just asking you questions and stuff. Have you ever told a student or anything that you did tell them that you put something into something? You probably made their year.
I've used names. Sometimes I'll hear a kid with an original name and I'll say, hey, I'll use your name, and then I do, and I'll hear back on that sometimes. Yeah. They get excited about that. Yeah.
So this series, The Five Kingdoms, and it's so interesting because it starts off with Halloween. So, I mean, it's interesting the way this whole series sort of starts off. Yeah. And where did the little seed start to grow for this one? Because I know your imagination is incredible, and where you pull things from that interest you. But where did this seed start to grow to begin this series?
One of the early seeds from this actually came from a Killers song. There's a line in the song that castles in the sky sit stranded, vandalized. So castles in the sky sit stranded, vandalized. And my sister-in-law really liked that line and said, you should make a story about this. And I was like, cool. Okay. Because I really thought it was cool too, and so as I started building the world for Five Kingdoms, I made sure I could accommodate these broken castles in the sky. You see those in book 1.
Right, and I love the way the salvaging and the stuff that that puts things together in this. There's so many elements to it. Yeah. But talking about the Killers, did you ever tell them that you got an idea for a series? Series?
I used that line as an excuse to go backstage and meet Brandon Flowers and to get his permission to put it in the front of the book, and that quote's in the front of the book with their permission. Yeah.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, so kind of cool, kind of neat. Yeah, for me I totally geeked out because I like their music. So. Yeah,
I would too. Oh, totally. So Rogue Knight, tell us a little bit about the character in this, because in the 2 main characters, because we have it's Corey, right? Cole. I'm sorry, Cole.
Yeah.
And how he's from Idaho, and he ends up, what happens is he's out in Halloween, he's dressed as a scarecrow, and his friends end up disappearing, and they've been kidnapped into this whole complete different universe, this world. Yeah. Yeah, but tell us about the Rogue Knight, because in this story, he's sort of this rebel in this. So tell us a little bit where the Rogue Knight came from.
Well, here's sort of what happened, right? Is Cole's stuck in this world. His friends are scattered across this world as slaves in different magical situations. Right. And he's traveling through these 5 kingdoms, trying to find his friends, trying to free them. And I think Cole's kind of discovering that even though he's scared and he doesn't always know what to do, but when he sees a friend in trouble, it kind of awakens a bravery, a courage. He's always at his best when a friend's in trouble. And in Rogue Knight, that holds true. In Rogue Knight, we're dealing with there's these daughters of the High King, and each of them has different powers that kind of fit in with the different kingdoms they're in, and their powers are now running wild. And one of the ways they're running wild, I don't know. I don't want to say too much.
No, you can't. No spoilers.
I keep putting the brakes on, but
right.
Yeah.
So this with Cole and so many of your books anyway are about heroism. About those heroes.
True. Yeah.
And I think totally this is, but there's also another element which makes another great storyline. It's a great thing for kids to discuss when you're thinking about it, is that how guilt sort of propels us to do things or not do things.
Yeah.
And I think there's some element of that too. So tell us a little bit about Cole and his character. Is he based on a composite of anybody? A little bit of you? I'm always curious where a character and their voice comes from.
It's tricky. It's tricky doing characters because you're trying to make these different voices, right?
Right.
And it's all, at the end of the day, it's all kind of coming from me. I have a nephew named Cole, and I took the name from the nephew, and the nephew Cole likes soccer, and so that's why the character likes soccer. I didn't make him exactly like my nephew though.
Right.
Cole really, at his core, he feels guilty because it was his idea to go to this spook alley on Halloween, which is where the kids get taken as slaves. So he feels some ownership, some responsibility for that.
Right.
And he's also, I think at the heart of this story, like the heart of my Fablehaven books was family, right? It was the relationship of these kids with their grandparents. And I think the heart of this book is friendship. It's Cole making new friends in this world. Like at first when he gets there, all he wants to do is get home. But as he makes new friends in this world, he realizes that these new friends are almost as important as his old friends, and he's trying to reconcile what he's supposed to be doing here. How much is he supposed to be caring about this world? How much is he supposed to be caring about getting home? And these are some of the things he's sorting through as he has these adventures.
Yeah. And Mira, she's such a good character too.
Yeah, hopefully.
I really like her, and Jace too. I mean,
I like Jace a lot.
Yeah, Jace is very cool.
He's got a very clearly defined personality.
Yeah. Now, is he based on anybody, or, I know a lot of you that write fantasy, there's so much a world that you've read and that you're exposed to and what you're imagining. And it's just interesting where characters sort of, it's a little bit of here, a little bit of there, and sort of mixed up into something.
Yeah, where everybody's coming from.
Yeah,
I know for Jace, I wanted somebody who was really strong-willed, really almost overconfident, right?
Yeah.
Because that kind of character just stirs things up and makes things interesting, and it gives someone for Cole to play off. Yeah.
So Brandon, in all your writing, I'm always curious when people write science fiction or they write fantasy, the whole process of building this world and writing it down, whether from the geography of it or the social network of this or anything, the economics, everything to build a world, what it looks like, what it is. Do you sit down and imagine your world first and write out sort of the rules and a sort of a guide to what it is before you, or is it kind of build itself as you're developing the story?
I'd say there's 2 phases, right?
Okay.
And I even talked to Brandon Sanderson about this.
Right.
So some writers are gardeners, and we kind of grow the ideas. And some writers are architects. We meticulously plan the ideas. And I'm kind of both. In my daydreaming phase of my book, my pre-writing is all daydreaming, and that's my gardening phase. Okay. And so I kind of daydream about a world and try to make it get cool in my head. And if it becomes really cool and becomes like a playground in my mind, then that becomes something that I shift to architect mode, and I start really designing it and building it. And so 5 Kingdoms cooked for a while. One of the interesting things on the world building with this one is each kingdom has a different kind of magical system, right? The magic varies from kingdom to kingdom. So if you got a really cool magic sword in one kingdom, in the next kingdom it might be worthless. And as far as world building, that let me build a really kind of complicated world, right? Where things really change and the characters have new things to discover with each new kingdom they go to, and even new problems to overcome and advantages that have been lost.
Right,
and
or
it gives
new
them a lot to
powers
deal
that
with.
they're going to
Yeah, they can acquire powers, they can lose powers based on what kingdom they're in. And so there really was a lot of thinking. Like as far as world building, it's maybe my master's thesis so far. You know what I mean? It is. It's probably my most complex world.
Right. But do you have to sit down and sort of write out some? So as you're writing, you know what you've already built, and that you don't, because the blocks have to sort of stay the same.
You'd be surprised how little I outline.
Oh, so, that's what I was wondering about.
A lot of my kind of pre-writing and outlining, it's all in my head. And think of it like a movie you've seen 100 times. I mean, that's how much I daydream about it. And so I just trust the cool stuff to stick and the boring stuff to fade away, and I get so familiar with it that I can usually get away without outlining. That's true for everything except character names. Sometimes I have to write a name down. But as far as the rules, for whatever reason, I think just because I was a daydreamer ever since I was a little guy, I'm really good at holding those rules in my head. I don't know why.
So as you're developing the story and things happen, they're surprising you as much as it is the reader in a lot of ways.
Sometimes.
Okay, well, no, that's why I was wondering, because...
As far as plot and story, right?
Okay.
I have daydreamed about it enough ahead of time that I do kind of go into it with a plan. So I know my main beats for this series. I kind of know what's happening in 4 and 5 when I'm writing book 1.
Yeah.
But scene by scene, I'm making lots of little discoveries, yes.
Yeah. You know, this whole world, it's sort of like... you're sort of in between worlds, you know, the real world, but also that world of dreaming. And then each of the, you know, now that we've had 2 kingdoms that we've been in, and we're waiting for the next one, and you know, in crystals and all that. Is it hard to, you know, when you put humor into your books, not only, but with the adventure and everything else that goes along, is it hard to make the balance just right? Because I think kids are so drawn to these, and they're plot driven, but yet they're getting a lot more than just that.
Hopefully.
Yeah, right.
You know, I think long and hard about how to balance it, right? I mean, humor is a big part of it.
Yeah.
I ran a sketch comedy troupe in college. I love comedy. I love doing comedy. So that was like going to dialogue camp. So it really helps with my dialogue that I have that comedy background. As far as kind of as far as the overall feel, I guess, it's set up to be kind of a world between worlds. Kind of in between life and death, in between reality and imagination. And they don't really get yet what this place truly is, but I do have a plan for it. Like, because that kind of sounds vague, right? Between life and death, between reality and imagination. But I really have actually there'll be a reveal in book 4 that will kind of define what this world really is and where it really is. That to me at least makes a lot of sense, and will almost the reveal of what the world is will be one of the coolest reveals, I think, in the series. So,
great.
Knock on wood. I hope that's true.
Okay. Did you tease the kids with that today?
No, I don't even tease them with that. I just want that. I leave that as a sleeper. So I just teased you, and I almost teased nobody, but it just fit your question so well.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So, you know, with your first book, when you published it, Fablehaven, in 2006, and you've written so many books since then and other series, is it still as thrilling to sit down and dream of that world and then sit down and begin a new book?
Yes.
As much as it was when you did Fablehaven?
A little more now.
Really?
I feel like I have more tools. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Like it's really exciting, because every time I write a book, I learn stuff. And that doesn't mean like the next book's easy, but I have more tools to attack it with, right? Like I've learned some stuff. And so, you know, knock on wood, I hope some of my best writing is still coming. One thing I have coming after this is a Fablehaven sequel series, which is something that I've...
oh, wow.
And that's locked in, that's contracted.
Oh,
it'll be 5 more books with the same main characters. And that's something I've looked forward to ever since ending Fablehaven. And it'll be fun to go back into that series that I like so well with some of the new tools I've acquired in the meantime. And so, you know, knock on wood, hopefully with 5 Kingdoms and with that Fablehaven sequel series, which will be called Dragon Watch. That'll be coming in 2016. Hopefully I'll have some fun stories to tell.
So this is the third book's coming out in March, and then 2017 will be the 5th, probably. That's what I looked up sort of the dates.
Yeah, that's right. And then the Fablehaven sequel series will come out fall of 2016. So book 1 will overlap. Does that make sense? Right?
Yeah.
So book 4, book 1, book 5, and then book... Yeah.
How do you keep this straight? And that kind of publishing schedule, it's got to be a lot of pressure.
It's a little brutal. Yeah.
Right.
I have a pretty nice wife.
that comes in handy.
I think it strains her sometimes, but she's pretty nice
right.
that she puts up with it, because it's a lot sometimes.
Yeah.
I plan to kind of throttle it back a little bit. I've been going really, really, really hard, and I'll stay at a book a year, I think, but 2 a year sometimes gets to be a little much.
That would be a lot.
Yeah.
You know, in this series, there's some sub-themes that I think are kind of cool for kids to think about, and they're probably enjoying the stories, but I bet they're thinking subconsciously about some other themes in this book.
Yeah, hopefully there's a little bit of meaning there, a little something.
But you know, there's sort of like, you know, there's slavery in this, and against being a freeman or being, you know, a scout or something. There's different levels of society to think about, but it's also, you know, I think how being a hero and how you can be a hero in a lot of different ways in your life. I think, but there's some. I just love that those sub themes of this, because it gives it so much more meat and weight to it. Besides just being just a great, you know, roller coaster of a ride kind of story.
And that is, I think, first and foremost, I am building roller coasters. If it's not a fun roller coaster, then I've kind of failed.
Right,
but
right.
that doesn't mean there can't be some meaning along the way and some kind of things to think about along the way. I hope so.
You know, with the fantasy you write, and, you know, talking about Brandon Sanderson is a good example. You know, have you ever thought of doing fantasies for adult?
Oh, I've thought about it. I've got a couple premises that would only work as adult fantasy, but that's looking into the future. So,
Okay.
you know, that someday, hopefully, maybe, but probably at least 10 years down the road, because I have a bunch of other stuff that still fits this category that I have planned.
Yeah. So I read that you've been thinking about being a writer for a very long time, since you were young. So what is that earliest recollection you have of you know, I would love to be a writer?
Easy. Okay, so first grade, right?
Okay.
I didn't like school in general, right? I was kind of like the kind of kid that didn't fit in super well, and my teachers weren't sure what to do with me, right? Because I was just kind of like crazy little brain, right? And I hadn't learned how to harness the crazy yet. But we got this assignment in first grade to write a story, and so I went to the back of the classroom. I got fully engaged, drawing pictures and creating this story. And my teacher basically left me back there for the next 3 days as the class moved on. And I was just totally engaged, and she was happy to see me engaged. And so I wrote this little book when I was in first grade, and it was the first assignment in school that I ever really loved. And I guess maybe was the first in a pattern of really enjoying writing in school, and then starting to write on my own for fun, and through high school and getting serious about it, and then gradually, you know, it became my job by age 30.
And do you remember what that story was about when you were in first grade?
Yeah, I was like a guy, like a space explorer, and he's fighting the big green space lion, and there was, you know, it was adventure-y kind of stuff.
Yeah.
It was not anything to be overly proud of.
Maybe
but
you should
it was,
go back to it. And you
That's right. That's right. Go mine that when I run out of ideas.
When you run out of it.
When I do the green space line, you'll know I'm kind of hitting the bottom of the tank is empty.
Okay. So, you know, I know other writers hate you for this, and it must be very cool when kids hear this, that when you went to the first publisher you went to, you submitted your first book, they published it, right?
Well, no.
So I want to know the story, because am I wrong about that?
You've heard a piece of the story, right?
Okay, let me hear the story, because I think it's interesting for kids and all of us to hear.
No, this is good to hear. It was actually, in some ways, it was the opposite for me.
Okay.
I failed a ton with short stories for a long time, right? Wrote lots of short stories. My theory was if I could learn to write a good scene, eventually I could write a good book. And so I practiced writing scenes by writing short fiction. And then my first novel I wrote did not get published. It was Beyonders. It was what evolved into Beyonders, right?
Okay.
But it was, I tried for years to get that published, and it failed. And then it went to a publisher that liked how I wrote, even though they didn't want to do Beyonders. And I'd written Beyonders, I wrote it kind of in between categories. When I first wrote it, it felt like middle grade, but the character was like 20, and it was a mess as far as marketing, right? That's partly why it couldn't sell. But since they liked how I wrote Fablehaven next, and the first publisher I showed Fablehaven to, did buy it immediately.
Okay.
And so Fablehaven was only shopped to them because they showed interest on Beyonders. But that was my second book, and that was after failing for a long time with short stories in the previous novel.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
It's not quite, you know.
But you could say that Fablehaven did sell the first place I showed it.
Okay.
Like, you know, so that might have been out there somewhere, right?
Right.
Yeah.
But I think kids love to hear too about the process, about how you do end up getting published, and sometimes it's just you got to keep trying.
I try to make it clear that if you get a no, when you're trying to pursue something artistic, you have just joined the club. Like, expect lots of rejection. Usually you have to get really good and be really persistent if you want to succeed. And those quick yeses are very rare.
Yeah, right. I read that you did your mission service, your 2 years in northern Chile.
That's true, yeah. That's true.
Now, that experience must have been incredible. So
It was.
Did it bring anything to your writing? Have you ever put any of those experiences into any of your books?
Well, here's what happens as a missionary. Is I kind of had a license to pry, right? You just go around and talk to people about their deepest beliefs, and you have this excuse to go. And so I was in northern Chile as a 19-year-old kid, and talking to people about life and God and what they believe and what matters most to them. And so what it basically did was just gave me lots of experiences and gave me lots of time to think and look at what different people believe and why and where that's led them in life. And so it just kind of educated me about people in general, which is so important for a writer, just to try to understand how different people think and feel. And not that I'm great at it. My wife would probably laugh if I pretended to be perfectly empathetic. But it did give me lots of experiences I wouldn't have otherwise had.
Yeah, and that deep part of a character and what they're thinking and that sort of thing.
Yeah, some of the things that drive us, stuff that matters to us. And, those deep conversations happen very naturally as a missionary, and not so often in normal life.
Yeah. And now you're a full-time writer, obviously, and that, and everything.
Yeah.
But you had some jobs after you graduated from Brigham Young, and tell us about some of those other jobs, because I'm sure you talked to kids about some of those jobs, right?
Yeah. No, I've been like a chicken stacker was the one with the funnest title.
Okay, yeah,
right?
that's a good title.
When there was dead frozen chickens, right? For Tyson's Frozen Chickens, I would
Yeah.
stack chickens all day.
Yeah.
And I've been I've installed patios, and I was a movie promoter for a while, a marketing copywriter.
wow.
And I've done a few different things.
Yeah. So these books, one of these days, I know probably there's been an option to do a movie or something from it. Has anything moved any further than that? Because, I think Beyonders or even Fablehaven would make such a cool movie.
There is a lot of potential, and Hollywood seems to see the potential, because my stuff is Candy Shop War has optioned before to New
Yeah.
Regency. Fablehaven has optioned to some major players, and there's still right now there's interest. Like we're talking with people who are interested in making Fablehaven. I would expect sooner or later it's going to happen, because there's been pretty steady interest. It's just a matter of finding the right team and the right budget and the right fit. Knock on wood, it's scary because it'd be terrible to see it made bad, but it's exciting because it would be so cool if they did a good job with it, So
Because your books are so visual that you can just see them on a big screen.
And they are fantasies, so it is a high budget, right? And
It
so
is.
if they're going to pull the trigger, they pull the trigger for a lot of money. But
Right.
but it's almost happened, so we'll see. Sooner or later, maybe.
Yeah. So your Spirit Animals series that you have
Yes.
with Scholastic, that's pretty cool. I mean, I love the series, some of those series that they've done where a different author writes each book. And so you created the whole series. So you wrote number 1, and then you wrote a special edition book. So
And I did the outline for the series too.
Right.
They came to me with a premise, so I don't own the premise.
Okay.
But the premise, was kids and animals bonding and having adventures, and so my job was to kind of flesh out that world, build the world for it, create an outline for the 7 books so that we could all be telling the same story, and then to write book 1. And that turned out to be a really good experience. Actually, Spirit Animals has really connected with kids, it seems like. I mean, we sold a ton of copies, and kids seem to be liking it.
Well, there's some phenomenal authors. So if some of them come to you to talk to you a little bit about the series began and sort of the overarching sort of thing?
Yeah, I've talked a little bit. I talked especially Shannon Hale, because we're friends. She wrote book 4.
Yeah.
But a lot of it also goes, there's a continuity editor, right, at
Oh,
Scholastic, and his name's Zach, and he's got my outline, and I think he really fields most of that. So you'd almost be surprised how little contact I've had with some of the authors where, okay, I wrote the outline, Zach's on it, and he's
the one who's...
and a lot of it is, each author is taking that outline and adapting it and messing with it, and we've got the editor to make sure they don't mess with it too much so that the story still is cohesive. But definitely each author gets credit for the book they wrote. You know what I mean?
Now, will you be writing the final book in the Spirit Animal series?
I'm not. They were interested in that, but it just didn't work out with my publishing schedule, partly because I was locked into other contracts. Really busy. It would have been fun, and I really enjoyed working with Scholastic was really great, and the Spirit Animals world is a cool world.
Yeah, kids absolutely love that series. So what are you working on now? I know number 3 will be coming out, and you said that's done and in the works.
Number 3 is done.
All right. So
completely done, which was stressful because it was like a deadline situation, but we got it done, and I think done well. Like my agent was thrilled, my editor's thrilled. I think it turned out really cool. I try to write my series so they kind of crescendo, kind of get grander and cooler as they go, and I think I've got a plan for 5 Kingdoms that lets that happen. I feel like that's what happened with Fablehaven.
Right.
So I'm excited to finish off 5 Kingdoms. I mean, I saved some of my favorite kingdoms with my favorite my favorite worlds and magic and stuff.
Can you give us a little idea what 4 or 5 might be?
Yeah, I mean, book 4 it might be called Death Dancers. We're not sure for sure.
Oh, okay.
But it's like book 4's kind of got some ghosty stuff in it, right? Like a little bit of crossing over to the other side, but not truly crossing over to the other side. It's sort of like another in-between place. You'll have to see. Like, I think I've built something really neat. Because I didn't want to try to solve all the mysteries of death with this book. You know what I mean? Because it's kind of ambitious. But I created a situation where we can kind of die but not die, and it's interesting. It'll be a really, really fun place for a story to happen. Right. And then the 5th Kingdom will involve messing with time and space a little bit. And I think I've created some cool rules that'll give our characters some interesting problems. But then looking beyond that, that's that sequel series to Fablehaven, which will be Dragon Watch, which will be very fun because I love those characters. Seth and Kendra are some of my favorite characters to write, and I've got, I think, a really grand plan. Our first Fablehaven series, the main threat was demons and the demon prison, and the sequel series, the main threat will be wizards and dragons, so the series title will be Dragon Watch.
Okay, cool. Well, I know kids will love to see. I mean, just like you are excited about revisiting those characters, kids will love to.
Of all the stuff I've done, I think I've gotten the most excitement about that sequel series. So we'll see if that. Hopefully, I won't disappoint everybody. You know what I mean?
I doubt that. No worries.
I think I've got a cool story, so we'll see.
Okay. I end these interviews with a little quiz. So this is sort of lightning round. So whatever comes to mind, really quick. It's mostly book related.
Okay, I'll try.
All right. Favorite book when you were a kid?
Narnia, Chronicles of Narnia, Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe.
Okay. How about something in high school? Do you remember something?
Ender's Game.
Okay.
Favorite book in high school.
Okay. How about when you were at Brigham Young? Something that you loved?
Oh, BYU. I was just reading textbooks. I don't know.
There had to be something to escape away.
Something post-college was Name of the Wind. I love Name of the Wind by Patrick Rothfuss.
Okay. How about a book, any book you've read your entire life that you were an evangelist for, you could not tell enough people they had to read this?
Well, lately in fantasy, it is The Name of the Wind. I tell people, if you like adult fantasy, Name of the Wind is a really good ride. I just thought it was really cool.
Okay. How about, who is your favorite fantasy author of all time?
Oh, I don't know. It's pretty...
Or it's a couple. You know?
It's got to be Tolkien, I think, because Lord of the Rings was so deeply imagined. I mean, that really is what... Like, Narnia set me up to love fantasy, and then Tolkien sealed the deal with Lord of the Rings. I just love that.
Okay.
But, you know, there's lots of great fantasy authors.
Have you ever faked reading a book?
Yeah, in school all the time.
Okay, you remember something in particular?
Gatsby, Great Gatsby.
Oh,
pretended to
I've
read
heard
it.
that one before.
Scarlet Letter. Pretended to read that.
Okay, I've heard that one mentioned before too.
I did read Catcher in the Rye. I ended up liking that one.
All right.
But like, and since then, like, I finally read Gatsby, and I was like, oh, this is a good book. They should teach it. You know what I mean?
You gotta wait till you're older, and then you like it.
For some reason, I couldn't connect in high school, but I liked it as an adult.
Okay. If you were sitting around at dinner and you could invite 3 people, any authors, live or dead, who would those?
Oh, alive or dead?
Live or dead. Who would
They got to be dead ones, right? Because that's.
Well, they could be dead or they could be alive. So,
okay.
So if there's you and three other authors, who would?
Okay, I know who it would be.
Okay.
It would be C.S. Lewis.
Okay.
I find him interesting personally, and I also love Narnia so much. And you know, that book that's the gateway to reading, that was Narnia for me, and so that'll always hold a special place. And then Tolkien, because Lord of the Rings, and because that was such a deeply imagined world, and he's dead, and I'd love to just say the movies are great, and the books are great. Like, I wish you lived to see your movies, because Peter Jackson hit him out of the park. And then I would love J.K. Rowling, because she's hard to access, and Harry Potter is the reason I write in this category, because she took a young main character, she made the story smart and twisty, and it really it showed me that you could write a story that an adult could like and a kid could like, that I could enjoy as an adult writer, and that a kid could also enjoy, and that's kind of what I'm aiming for with my books. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And how about a book when you have 4 kids that you sit down when you curl up, or something that you enjoyed to read together?
Something to read together.
Yeah.
One that comes to mind right away is Despero. We read Tale of Despero together.
Yeah.
That was fun, and we read picture books together too, and Mo Willems and whatever. And we love reading together.
Yeah. And how about something you're reading now, or something you've read recently that you're enjoying?
What have I read recently? Most recently was Deadline. I'm reading The Story Thief, which is by James Riley, who you were also going to interview.
Yes, that's right.
And I'm liking it. It's got a good voice. It's fun. It
is a lot of fun.
He's a nice guy too. So that's actually what I'm reading currently. So.
Okay. All right. 100%. A+.
Cool.
Alex Trebek will be so proud of you.
Good. I passed the quiz. Good.
Well, Brandon, thank you so much. Congratulations on 5 Kingdoms, Rogue Knight. And we can't wait for number 3, and then that prequel series, or the series of this follow-up to Fablehaven.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for chatting with me.
We'll come back and see us when those come out.
Sure.
Great conversation with New York Times best-selling middle grade author Brandon Mull about his new fantasy. It's a second book in the 5 Kingdoms series, Rogue Knight. Thanks for joining me on Authors Revealed.